It's pitch black. The only light is coming from the flashlight on your phone. It's so quiet that you can hear a ringing in your ears. You shine your flashlight onto a nearby headstone. The epitaph reads, "Reader, beware as you pass by. As you are now, once was I. As I am now, so you will be. Therefore prepare to follow me." The leaves crunch behind you and the hair on the back of your neck stands up. I'm Marina. With me I have my two best friends, Colby and Laura, and this is Grim. Spooky. So we're pivoting. We're doing something a little bit different this week because I'm going on vacation next week. So we're going to miss a week. And we didn't want to miss a week. We wanted to make sure that we continue to put out content for our gremlins. But our cases, as you all may know, are quite fact intensive and probably take, I would estimate, between 20 to 40 hours on even the cases that you would think don't have that much detail because we're all type A perfectionist personalities and we must digest all information that exists on the internet about a case. So none of us had time to jam that into our busy schedule. So we're doing spooky cemeteries today.
I'm so excited.
That was such a good intro though. So
thank you.
Colby and I didn't know what it was going to be and it creeped me out. It's daylight and it's still creepy. So that was good.
Also, I research cases at night between the hours of like 10 and 11:30 because that's when I get time to myself. I can read about murders and bodies and autopsies, no problem, and roll over and fall right to sleep. I was researching the spooky cemeteries and researching facts, and I'm like, oh, this one's in my room. She's standing right next to me. I can feel her presence. I'm like, something's going to touch my leg. You got to put your legs under the covers because something's going to grab you from underneath the bed. And don't check the walls because you're going to see a shadow.
Yep.
And it's going to be horrifying. And yeah, I actually at one point was near my phone and it dinged while I was looking at the iPad and I jumped a mile because I was just so focused on the content.
I do have one leg hanging down from my chair right now and I'm really trying to figure out how to pretzel it up. Yeah.
Tuck it up. Something's going to get it.
The thing that I just was taken back to here in like the early days of AOL, remember all those chain emails that they were like, if you don't forward this to 10 people, such and such will come through your computer and kill your family.
And how much scarier were those emails after the Ring came out?
Oh my God, so terrifying.
Yeah, I'm like, Samara's coming for me if I don't forward this email.
I've seen it.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that still exists on Facebook too. I'm pretty sure some people still send that stuff through Messenger.
Probably.
It would be my mom who passes it along.
Yeah.
If I
we
had
love
to,
you.
If I had to identify any person who would pass it along, it would be my mama.
Yep. Well, I will say, so the other reason this is kind of an interesting one is it's actually a joint episode.
It is.
So just again to kind of split the research because we can't even handle it when it's supposed to be a small one. Marina and I, and this is Laura. Do you guys know our voices yet? I feel like you probably do.
I feel like they sound different enough. They can distinguish, I think.
Okay.
Well, I think so.
Now you know.
They might not know whose it is, but they're all individual, unique voices, I think.
Okay. Well, it's this voice that is doing the other part of the case. So, and I will say, so it was Marina's suggestion to do cemeteries, and I was kind of like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I will say I wasn't as jazzed as I get jazzed about murder. So, but I actually had so much fun researching this, and it was more interesting to research this because I actually had to go to a bunch of different places and it led me down a bunch of rabbit holes. Whereas with a case, I usually kind of know what I need to research.
Right.
So I have some super interesting stuff. So it's an exciting one.
I'm excited.
Woohoo. Also, the 3 cemeteries we chose are all in Connecticut. If we do this again, it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to Connecticut. I would love to do like a Louisiana cemetery where like all the graves are above
Oh, I was like, why?
Oh,
Why
like New
specifically?
Orleans.
Yeah.
I'm like Louisiana in my head. I'm like, I went to a super cool cemetery in Louisiana and sweat my tits off. It was like,
Was it in New Orleans?
yes.
Okay,
'Cause
it's so cool.
It's like, it was where Nicolas Cage is buried, the Eternal Cage. I had to go see it. Wow. But everything in there is like cement, and it had to be like 97 degrees out. So inside the cemetery, I was with a family from India that was sweating. So that's how I knew that like I was screwed. When the people who were like not phased by 105, 110 degree weather are like, please get us water, we're dying. Like, I'm just like, all right, let me crawl into one of these drawers over here. Like, just finish it.
See you later.
I can't. I would love to see those. I remember doing like research. I took a death and dying class in college. It was very lighthearted and informative.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Much like this podcast will be.
Yes. And I did a project on, what was the name of it? Yeah, obviously it didn't stick with me that well. But I'm trying to think of the name of like their funeral processions. Like they have like these huge celebrations and parades, and that has a specific name that I can't recall. But then I was also researching like how they don't bury because they're above the water table. Yes. So they're all in like vaults and those big vaults, actually. Those are called vaults too, the big
Mausoleum?
houses.
Is that a
Mausoleum,
word?
yeah, that's a word too. And they actually only have like so much space for the body, so they
Yes.
like swap them out.
Oh.
They actually, the other body like disintegrates, and then
and
they
they
just
just
put
put it-
another
yes.
right on in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I did not know that.
I am shocked I retained information because I melted.
I'm also wondering though, I'm sorry, did you say Nicolas Cage is buried there? Because I thought he was still alive.
No.
I'm so glad you asked that,
No,
because I
he's
was like,
not. But it's where he will be buried. It's a pyramid. It's called the Eternal Cage, and it will be his final resting place.
Because like half the time that you were talking, I was like, Nicolas Cage isn't he alive still?
Isn't
Listen,
he
I
busy
was-
not paying taxes?
Isn't he a
still?
national treasure? He's a national treasure.
He is a national treasure. He himself is one.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be the one to ask, so I'm glad you did.
Sorry,
I was like, does she mean Nicholas Sparks? But I think he's alive too. I don't know.
I'm more confident that Nicholas Sparks is alive than Nicholas Cage.
I was like, I missed that. I missed that article on my newsfeed. They're too busy telling me about the Kardashians' butt implants to give me any real news about like Nicolas Cage's death.
The Gremlins are already like, okay, this is definitely a different episode. We're off the rails.
I was
the
just gonna
record,
say off the rails.
He is living.
Thank you for verifying.
Okay, good. Whew. Okay.
So if you've stuck with us this long, here you go. I'm going to give you some information about cemeteries. So the first one we're going to start with is called the Seventh-day Baptist Cemetery, and it is located on Upson Road in Burlington, Connecticut. Don't ask me about geography, ladies.
Is there a grocery store there?
I think so.
It is west of here. That's about all I know.
Thank you.
I get it confused with Berlin.
Yes.
It's not the same.
They do
in
start.
case you were wondering.
They
not
do
the same.
start
Yeah,
the same.
a few more syllables, but
Burlington would probably be like my dream town to
Yeah?
move to in the state. Yeah. It's a lot like where I grew up. There's not like a lot of like commercial stuff. There's a lot of land.
It's very woodsy and dark.
very woodsy and dark.
that's interesting. That my cemetery is also in a woodsy, dark area.
Yeah,
So,
those
interesting.
Those 18th century cemeteries, super spooks. So, cemetery dates back to the late 18th century and was used as a burial ground for members of the Seventh-day Baptist Church. So, the Seventh-day Baptists began in 1650 in England. They came to America, more specifically Rhode Island, in 1665. And the first Seventh-day Baptist Church was established in Newport, Rhode Island in 1671. The Baptist Church split and expanded as members moved away from Newport. In 1780, 20 Seventh-day Baptist families made the move from Westerly, Rhode Island to Burlington, Connecticut, which was known as West Britain at the time. And on September 18th, 1780, the church was established, and the family set up the church right across the street from a small pond so that they had somewhere to conduct baptisms.
Okay.
Thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know you could baptize someone in a pond. I guess you just can bless it.
I think any body of water.
Interesting.
Yes.
I genuinely didn't know that.
I'm thinking of them like baptizing people in the river.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Baptized in the river.
That's what I was
Is that a good Charlotte song?
throwing it back.
See, I have Book of Mormon stuck in my head where she's like, I'm gonna baptize you. Anyways,
Wow, we made it 10 minutes in and we're singing.
Okay.
so close. At the meeting of the Seventh-day Baptist Society on October 12th, 1796, a deed was presented by Jared Covey, the benefactor of the church, to the other members detailing the plot of land known as Seventh-day Baptist Cemetery for the purpose of using it as a public burying ground. The land had already been used as a burial ground. A man named John Davis was buried there in 1780, but it wasn't officially declared Seventh-day Baptist Cemetery until 1796. The Baptist community in Burlington was plagued by accidental deaths for a decade, starting in 1810. One member fell off of a ladder and died while repairing his house. Another died when a recently dug well collapsed on him. Another was hanged while repairing a lamp in her home. And another was killed when a tree fell on him in the woods.
You want to say that last one again?
Hanged
while doing what?
Repairing a lamp in her home.
Did the cord, what, do we know what happened?
I don't know if they had cords in 18 to 1800s.
Oh, maybe like a kerosene lamp. Maybe it like.
How would you get hanged?
That's where I'm
maybe
confused.
that would be flame. Yep. Okay.
Maybe the lamps were hanging from the ceiling and she they didn't detail how she was.
I could tell by how you looked at me that we didn't have more information there, but
I do appreciate that you wondered if the lamp cord strangled her in the 1800s.
Hey, Colby thought that there was a Subaru in 1899.
That is not true. They belonged
know you didn't.
there.
I just had to direct the blame here.
I thought they were going to burn, and she told us they were hanged. So
Hanged
Interesting. Spooky.
while repairing a lamp in her home. Who knows? It's a mystery. It's a grave mystery.
Insidious.
So these deaths all could have been accidents, especially back in the 1800s. But some people believe that the quote-unquote accidents may have been the work of early Burlington residents trying to force the Sabbatarians from Burlington. Ooh. That's a fun word, too. Sabbatarian. The church membership dwindled as people moved away, passed away, or switched religions and or churches. By 1820, all of the Seventh-day Baptists had left the area, and the last person interred in the cemetery was either in 1881 or 1887. I saw both numbers and could not confirm which one it was. But there were 75 monuments total in the cemetery. Today, there are no full standing headstones. Some had fallen over, some had been vandalized, others were worn out by the elements. Until 2010, the only standing headstone was that of Elizabeth Palmater, although it was not the original headstone. It had been replaced. Elizabeth Palmater had died in 1800 at the age of 30. In July 2010, her 200-pound headstone was stolen.
what?
And
why?
I can only think two things. Like, A, screw whoever took it, because I can't think of like anything worse than when people vandalize cemeteries.
Agreed. Yep.
And B, who in this state has a 200-pound Elizabeth Palmater headstone like in their man cave? That is probably still somewhere in this state, because why would you wouldn't take it and destroy it? I'm like,
probably
can't
not.
Sell marble.
I was going to say they're valuable, though. I know they're expensive headstones.
Yeah, but would you like shave it down?
I was
and
gonna say you already have a
reuse it?
name on it, so it's kind
I
of
get like if they polish it, but I'm just I was just picturing this giant headstone like next to some kid's like PS3 gaming chair, and like that's just somewhere in this state.
I was trying to figure out how they got it out of there.
Same.
Like, there's not like a good way to grip it.
No, well, 200 pounds. If four people got, I think that the headstones are almost like loose on top of that base. So if four people got on the corners and got their fingers under it.
I was picturing it, the kind that's like in the grass, in the ground.
No, this was like a freestanding, upright headstone.
Still. All right. We're judging you, whoever has it.
How dare you? Bring it back. So the cemetery has been mistakenly referred to as Burlington Center Cemetery, but it is known to the locals as Green Lady Cemetery due to the Green Lady ghost that allegedly haunts the grounds. I use allegedly a lot. I'm just realizing that right now. So
you are the resident lawyer, so that's kind of what I would expect.
I realize how often I speak like a lawyer. Even in our text, I'll be like, it appears that I'm going to be late. Like that's instead of like coming out and committing to something, I'm like, if you consider all the circumstances, it appears that I will be untimely this evening. I realized I did that too. But so allegedly, a green mist appears to visitors, and it becomes clearly defined as the shape of a woman in a green dress who then smiles before disappearing.
So she's friendly, at least.
She is friendly, yes. Many people believe that Elizabeth Palmer is the Green Lady.
Looking for her headstone.
That. Or so the story goes, Elizabeth's husband Benjamin went into town one day and did not return. Elizabeth, who was worried about him, went out into a terrible storm to find him, and she drowned in a nearby swamp trying to find him. But Benjamin had just been waiting out the storm in town. When he returned, he searched and found the body of his wife in the swamp.
Oh.
And it said that Elizabeth was wearing a green dress when she was found.
That's so sad.
That's super sad.
Some people question that story and think that Benjamin murdered her.
Oh, that's sad in a different way.
And used the drowning alibi to cover up the murder. But there really isn't enough information to prove either version of the tale. But they both are out there.
Yeah, if you thought it was easy to murder people in 1970, just imagine 100 years before. Much easier.
1800s, you could probably just be like, yeah, I murdered her. She talked back to me. They'd be like, that's fair. Good choice.
Exactly.
Good choice.
Oh, gosh.
In addition to the Green Lady, visitors have reported seeing a light, which is believed to be Benjamin's lantern that he used as he searched for his missing wife. Driving through Burlington, there are many streets that are fully surrounded by trees with no streetlights. I mean, it is pitch black. Pitch black.
Much like how Colby and I both grew up.
Yep, and that's part of the reason why I really like that town, yeah.
As an aside, whenever Steve and I go, so my family's from New Hampshire, whenever we go back up and he's like, man, it is so dark around here. How do you drive? I'm like, well, high beams and guessing.
A little bit of guess and check.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it just me though? Like every time I'm on a dark road like that, the reservoir over here on the back part has no lights. And when it doesn't even have to be that late, just dark. I think, what if my car broke down right now?
Yes.
And I was just in this
Every
pitch.
time.
But you know what I would
Pitch
think
black.
is I have my cell phone, whereas when I was driving around in New Hampshire, not only was there no service, but it also was before cell phones were common. So that was worse.
Horrifying.
Yep. But, you know.
Super scary. So So the spook factor,
Anyway.
just getting to Green Lady in
Exactly.
the dark
Yeah.
will really...
I do agree with that.
really sets the mood for you. And across the street from the road that brings you to Green Lady, it's sort of like Upson Road is at like a T with this other street, and at the T it's called Camp Shade. It's in disrepair now, but it was a camp for younger kids that they would run over the summer. It's in complete disrepair. It's all overgrown, and in the dark. Let me see if I can describe this. We'll post a photo on the Instagram, but these buildings are these like white run-down buildings, and that whole area is fenced in, and then there are these bright lights that are lighting up the camp, so that probably to deter trespassers. So it almost looks like a prison, the way it's like lit up like that, but it's in complete disrepair, and it is like the one bright spot amongst all of these dark, like lamplish streets.
Yeah.
And it is so spooky because you just picture like Michael Myers like walking out the door, or like something super creepy. Like it really, again, it sets the scene for you entering this cemetery.
And God help you if it's a foggy night.
Oh, forget it. Yeah. And so you have to sort of know where you're going to find this road. Like Upson Road, it's not well marked. And when you pull in, again, it's completely pitch black. There's no lights on that street. And by the way, I think I forgot to introduce this, but I used to go ghost hunting there when I was in high school and probably early college years, maybe. But it was the cool thing to do, to go to Green Lady and, gotta find it super spooky. Not like we don't know the address and have Google Maps, but like it felt really forbidden and hidden back then and mysterious. And so I remember I turned into the street and my headlights immediately hit a cop car. And the cop was sitting there in the pitch black. He didn't have any lights on in his cruiser. He didn't have his headlights on. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. He's sitting there waiting for trespassers and to deter trespassers. How spooked would you be sitting in the pitch black by yourself with no light around you? Just waiting for someone to knock on your window? I would never take that job.
So I was going to say I couldn't take that job, but also I was thinking how freaked out you must have been, because when you're also like, I'm not generally freaked out by like paranormal stuff and all that, but as soon as I start talking like this, like I'm going to have a hard time going home tonight. Like as soon as I start talking like this, and I remember as a kid, you'd like, did you guys do that where you had to like go in the bathroom and close the turn the lights off and like say
Bloody Mary?
Bloody Mary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never.
Like,
I couldn't do it.
So I
couldn't do it.
I did, and I hated it, and I don't even know. But it's that when you're in that like I'm gonna be freaked out thing, it's super creepy. So I would have freaked out seeing that.
Well, also I'm a goody two shoes, and I'm like I'm gonna get arrested because unfortunately, like I never went ghost hunting in like buildings or anything like that. Like as much as I think like the abandoned asylums are cool, to me there's a line that's crossed when you're breaking locks or breaking windows to get into a building versus just walking on open property that you're not supposed to be on after dark, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, I can't imagine being that cop. I also find that, the more, and it's probably just me reading into things, but I find like when I have times where I'm talking more about paranormal stuff or watching paranormal movies, I just feel like I'm more sensitive to being spooked out and like thinking things are things, and maybe they are, but I mean,
I have something I'll mention during my part that is exactly like that, because I was researching all happily and not freaked out in the middle of the day, and then I mean it wasn't that bad, but something happened and I was like, oh, that's creepy. So I'll leave you in suspense.
Okay, I can't wait. Can't wait. So I went with my friends in high school. We went a couple times. So obviously the time that we pulled in and the cop was there, we left, obviously. But the one time that we did go, we stopped on Upson Road and we got out of the car. And now, like I said, we were already all spooked from the get-go because A, you're going there to be spooked. B, it's completely pitch black leading up to there. Like, I mean, that's just disturbing on its own. It really is.
And it's probably eerily silent too, because it's not like it's a particularly busy area. So it's dark. It's very quiet.
It was very quiet. Like I said, like we're so quiet you can hear like the ringing in your ears. There's no traffic. There's no other sounds. So it wasn't windy, but the leaves in the woods around us kept sounding like they were rustling. Again, it could have been a squirrel. It could have been a chipmunk. It could have been a raccoon. It doesn't matter. You're like, someone's sitting in the woods and they're watching us. Like totally freaked out. And you feel very exposed too because it's pitch black. So you are the source of light with your flashlights or your cell phones. So anybody could be anywhere staring at you too.
That's the worst part. If you have in any state, like having a flashlight, even if you're not in a graveyard, it is freaky because you can't see except for where your flashlight is.
Right. So. But other people can see you clearly because you're holding a flashlight. Ugh. So this was a time, actually, cell phones may have existed, but we weren't taking dark pictures with our cell phones. Like they did not, they were like half a megapixel on just like the front of the flip phone. So we had digital cameras where, you know,
TBT.
Super cool. And they had the little screen on it so you could like preview the image. So we were walking, the cemetery would have been our right-hand side. We were headed towards it. One of the friends that I was walking with stopped, like looked so freaked out. She flipped around, took a picture, and then took off running into our car. And we were like, what is happening? Yeah. So of course we all ran after her. Super freaked out. We get in the car and we're like, what? And she's like, someone was walking behind us. Like I heard their footsteps in the leaves. And I was like, I still have chills retelling this story because we were walking, it's silent, and she turned around because she heard someone walking in the leaves. We pull up the camera, we look at the photo, and there is a white mist that looks like the silhouette of a woman. Unfortunately, I do not have this picture any longer because I probably lost the SD card.
I was going to say you burnt it.
I was going to say it was posted on your MySpace and things that you put there weren't really forever. They're gone.
It was probably like on my Snapfish. I feel like it was before MySpace was
Flickr.
What was there was another one too.
Oh God, I don't know.
Oh, there was another one. But yeah. So yeah, this silhouette of this woman, and we were like, okay, like just panic. Just sheer panic. So we're like, okay, we came here, like, this is cool. Like, let's get back out. Let's do this. So we get back out of the car, and the digital camera that we were just looking at in the car that had fully functional batteries died as soon as we get out of the car. We're like, nope, get back in the car. Like, the safety of I believe I had my yellow Tiburon.
Oh, my God. The yellow Submarina.
The yellow Submarina, yep. We get back in the car. The camera works again. We roll down the window and stick the camera outside the window. and it died again.
Oh, creepy.
Oh, that's so strange.
We noped the fuck right out of there.
Oh, yeah.
We were like, nope, that's enough. We're done. We did not see the green lady. Well, unless the silhouette of the person behind us, but we did thoroughly freak ourselves out.
I have goosebumps.
You got goosebumps?
I got a chill.
So that's Green Lady, guys.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's currently owned as like town water property, and I think they said by New Britain, which is interesting. I would think it's Burlington, but
It's like reservoirs are owned by towns that they're not in all the time. So
yeah. But it is considered trespassing if you go there after dark. But it was really funny because I remember we went once to like scope it out, and someone was walking their dog, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like they're walking their dog on this road. I can't wait to come back. And I was like, I'm gonna investigate this place. Like, no, it was really just me going there and peeing my pants and then leaving and then not sleeping all night because I was so freaked out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah, because then that's the worst is like when you finish, because inevitably it's with your friends, you're out for a night, whatever, and then you have to go home and like get home and be by yourself. The worst.
So the second cemetery I'm going to talk about is Gunntown Cemetery, which I think this one is far less well known than the Green Lady, but it still is on the top lists of spooky cemeteries in Connecticut. I'm just going to, again, give a little history of the area. So Gunntown Cemetery is located in Naugatuck, Connecticut, in an area that used to be known as Gunntown. So Gunntown was an 800-acre area where the Gunn family was said to live and operate a sawmill in the 1740s. And Gunntown Cemetery is in the middle of this 800-acre area. The first member of the Gunn family to arrive in Connecticut was Jasper Gunn. In 1635, he traveled from London to Boston, then to Roxbury, Connecticut with his wife. He wanted to start his own colony, so along with several other families from Roxbury and Dorchester, Jasper purchased even more land from the local Indians. On November 24th, 1640, the area was named the town of Milford, of which Jasper was considered one of the founders.
Also, Jasper, great name.
It is a great name.
We need to bring that back. That's all.
Bring what back? Oh, the name.
The name Jasper.
It is a great name.
Sorry. It's a good name.
I also think like Twilight. Oh, the vampire in Twilight.
Yeah.
Jasper Gunn was considered Milford's first doctor. He was also a deacon at the church, a lawyer in a few cases, and the sealer of weights and measures.
Busy man.
So I'm like, okay, that must be a thing from like the 1600s. So I Googled it, and no, there are still sealers of weights and measures. A sealer is responsible for enforcing the accuracy requirements and other standards relating to weighing and measuring devices used in the sale of food, fuels, and other products.
Huh. I mean, I'm glad they have someone doing that.
Yeah.
So we're not ripped off, but...
Okay.
So what was the word we learned in the Hartford Circus Fire? The roustabouts?
Roustabout.
Okay, we're educating here. Don't we say listen and learn?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So
there you go.
Your education
Better
today
vocabulary.
is sealer of weights and measures, which that's more of a phrase or a title than a word. Mm-hmm. But still, we've learned something today.
I learned that too. I'm just kidding.
So, bless them, Jasper and his wife had 7 children.
Whew.
I have 2 and feel thoroughly outnumbered every minute of every day. So 7, forget it. I would be. Yeah, no. After living in Milford for a while, he and his family moved around Connecticut a few times. In 1647, they moved to Hartford. He was made the main operator at Hartford's mill from 1649 to 1658 due to his life experience. Jasper Gunn died in 1670, although ironically he is not buried in the Gunntown Cemetery.
Oh.
I believe he's buried in the Milford Cemetery. But the Gunntown Cemetery was established in 1790, and there are members of the Gunn family buried in that cemetery.
When did Jasper die?
1670.
That's why he wasn't in that cemetery.
Predated, and they did not exhume him and move him.
Okay, but it was established in 1790. Remember, we learned about the other cemetery that people had already been being buried there. It's just like a stat. I think when you put the fancy sign up on it.
I got you.
You know,
Cemetery here. That's when it becomes official.
It does make sense though that, you know.
That felt very Legally Blonde, like questioning style. And your boyfriend's name was?
You caught me. Nailed it.
You bitch.
Okay. So, Connecticut demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren declared the cemetery to be, quote, officially haunted. So, excellent. I just wanted to give a little bit of information about Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, anybody that is into like scary movies and paranormal investigations and, you know, spook stuff, Ed and Lorraine Warren are famous in the paranormal world. Ed Warren was a self-proclaimed and self-taught demonologist, and Lorraine Warren was clairvoyant and a medium. They lived in Monroe, Connecticut, and in 1952 they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research. The couple estimates that they had investigated over 10,000 cases in their career. They were involved with the Amityville haunting, and their investigations have inspired movies like Amityville Horror, the Conjuring movies, and Annabelle. And now, if Ed and Lorraine say it's haunted, it's haunted. It's haunted. Mm-hmm. I have a quote from Lorraine Warren that I really like. It says, "Diabolical forces are formidable. These forces are eternal, and they exist today. The fairy tale is true. The devil exists. God exists. And for us as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow."
Ooh, I did get chills from that, actually.
I thought that was really deep. So the most common paranormal experience that occurs in Gunntown Cemetery is people hear the sound of children's laughter. They hear music in the surrounding woods that surrounds them until it sort of sounds like it's coming from inside the cemetery. So it sort of envelops them while they're standing there. People have also reported a black dog that they say is a sign of foreboding death. I also happened to go ghost hunting at this cemetery.
Oh, did you now?
I did. The cemetery is surrounded by a rock wall, and we parked our car in front of the cemetery, which felt very exposed, but there was really nowhere else to park it. So we're walking around the cemetery, and there's a car, it looked like a Jeep, going very fast down the road, and slams on their brakes, like squealing tires, right next to my car, and starts laying on their horn. Okay. So once again, we're heading into the cemetery. We're already super spooked out. That happened. We all dropped behind headstones, and I'm like, this is how we die. Like, someone's mad that we're trespassing. It's some like crazy local who, you know, loves their guns. And
it's the living people you have to watch out for.
Yeah,
really. Most of the time. I mean, really. So I was so spooked, and they finally drove off, and we all stood up. I'm like, do we leave now? That feels like a sign to leave. But we stayed.
I think it was just people messing with you, though.
Definitely.
They probably just wanted to scare you. I don't think they were mad. I think they were like, look at these clowns. Let's give them a scare.
Very effective tactics. Very effective in scaring, high school me. Very effective. So we were sort of just like roaming around the cemetery. I think it was like always a different group of friends every time I went to. People were like, you go ghost hunting? Like, I didn't have any equipment. It was just me being like, I like to trespass in dark cemeteries at night.
I have my digital camera.
I've got my equipment right here. Got my little Nikon camera.
And they had the wristlet thing.
Oh yeah, you got the strap.
Yep.
Gotta make sure you don't lose it. So one of the people that we were with sort of like randomly wandered to the back of the cemetery, and we felt like we lost him, and we're like, where did he go? I'm just gonna mention he was like a crazy stoner, like a crazy, like you're talking to him wondering if he's comprehending things stoner. Okay. So I took it with a grain of salt, his report, but he said that he was following a ball of light to the back of the cemetery.
I don't think
that checks out. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think weed really shows you lights. So.
No, I mean unless it's laced with something, but. I don't know. We were spooked out. I was like, oh my God, that happened for real then. Like, that's real life. That happened.
Definitely.
I like to use a more critical lens now, looking back at some of these stories, but the scare remains for me.
Oh, sure.
It really does. The spook factor remains. So then we're just walking around, and we're just like taking pictures, flashing in the dark, trying to get pictures of orbs or spooky things. So again, you get that little preview, like after you take it and it beeps and it shows you the preview. So I'm taking, and it's pitch black behind all the photos, and then the gravestones show up white. So I took a picture. I took a bunch of pictures. I take another picture, and the preview comes up red. Like almost the whole preview comes up red. Oh. I almost tripped over a gravestone. I dropped my camera. I almost was like, I'm just going to leave it behind. Like, let's go on without it. It's fine. I'll buy another one. Ultimately went back for it. This is another photo I no longer have, but I was eternally spooked out. It is like the shape of someone's hair, like their hair coming down, and like in a very small portion of it, it looks like there is a very creepy face, like a little like menacing, grimacing face on this photo. Just for the preview to pop up with it being red, and now again, I understand like sometimes the way the light refracts. You know, that can, and that's why people say there's orbs, like your flash caught a piece of dust, but this one, the whole picture came up like a red mist.
Was your finger over the flash?
It was not, no.
Okay. All right. That was my first thought.
It was not, no. Not that I'm aware of anyways. That may be a logical explanation, but I do not receive that. I captured a picture of a red demonic woman staring at me in the cemetery, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I didn't go ghost hunting per se, but there were times where a friend and I would go and sit in a cemetery with a Ouija board and like try to do stuff. No, and nothing ever happened.
Marina can't touch Ouija boards.
It never. That's true. Marina was banned from Ouija boards in what, elementary school?
I was, but
I went looking for trouble and it did not come to me.
Okay, first of all, when I was Googling Ed and Lorraine Warren and looking up information, I believe they said that 90% of their cases begin with a Ouija board. So there's that. I think that was the statistic. You can Google it, but it was mostly related to Ouija boards.
Yep.
Also, I guess bravery is the word that I would need to describe that, because I would be afraid with a Ouija board in my living room.
Same.
If you added that to a cemetery, you're a bad bitch, Colby. You're a bad bitch.
My friend at the time, Sam, and I have a thing for Sams, apparently. Different Sam than the one you're giving me a face about. Hey, Sams, if you're listening. But this one and we grew up in a town that is very well known in the state of Massachusetts for being like a very haunted town. And I think maybe we have the oldest graveyards there, or the most old graveyards or something. And there was one like we could ride our bikes to. It was almost like an episode of Stranger Things, kind of. This wasn't the 80s. This was the
Were
early
you in the
2000s.
Upside Down?
No, we tried to get to the Upside Down and it rejected us. So I tried. I wanted to do ghost hunting and just nothing came in contact with us. But I do have other stories of stuff that happened in my town, but I'll save those.
Gosh. So I genuinely wonder this. I feel like I had so many experiences, and I wonder if it's just because I'm such a spooked out, paranoid person that every time something happens, like I swear I went to another very spooky cemetery that's on like the Southington-Meriden line. It's up on a hill, again, no lights. So as you pull your car up, like you're going up the hill, and then when you get to the top, your headlights come down and just light up all these very old headstones. I keep giving myself chills, guys. Like I am traumatized from these experiences.
You seem to be, yeah.
And we would get out and we would walk around, and I was like walking with my friend next to me, and I was talking to them. Like I could see them on the side of me, and then they were like not on the side, they were like ahead of me, and I turned my head and was like, you were standing right next to me, and they're like, I walked away from you like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, okay, well, I was just talking to some person next to me this whole time. So, but again, that could just be my brain playing tricks on me. Like,
or you could be more open to it than maybe I'm too skeptical to receive it.
Maybe. Yes, I am an open book. But don't talk to me if you're a ghost. You will really spook me out.
Talk to me, because I'm sitting here like giddy as the two of you are like, whoa, chills. And I'm like, give me the ghost.
Colby's like, you guys went home and I had a seance right before bed and then closed my eyes and slept like a baby. And Laura and I were like, we were up all night and we saw the spooky clown shadow on the ceiling and couldn't sleep all night.
Very confident that the guy that we bought this house from, I'm very confident that his ghost came here and visited us when he died.
No,
because
that's too real.
I was laying in bed and like I felt somebody, like it was like I stopped breathing for a couple of minutes and I felt somebody like grab my arm and I shot up. Then we learned the next day that the man who we bought the house from had actually passed away that night. And I like turned to my husband and I was like, holy shit, I knew that he died yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
I'm out. But We are pretty sure we had a hand in killing him because when we bought
This took a dark turn.
when
we really wanted the house.
when we bought the house, all of the wood trim was natural wood, and he had like meticulously taken care of it over the years, and he was showing us like the materials he used for it and how to upkeep it. And we went and we painted all of it white. And then he died.
Fallon knows. She knows.
Fallon's like, he's here.
Is he with us in this room right now?
Stop.
Make your presence known.
Nope, this is getting too serious.
I swear after my dad died, I saw him standing in the doorway of my condo multiple times. And I said, I literally said out loud, like, I see you. Thank you for checking on me, but you're super spooking me out. Please stop. And it did not happen after that.
The night that my mom died, she died at home. And I remember my bedroom at home is at the end of a hallway and it's carpeted. And I could always hear her coming down the hallway. And the
Kinda
night
like
she
Fallon
died,
right now.
Yeah. And the night she died, I heard her footsteps to my door, and she was bedridden, so she was not walking down the hallway.
Oh my gosh.
And I heard that the night she died, and my aunt came up right after that. So that's why I think I'm so, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
The first time you
It's
told
so
me
real.
that, though, like I felt so good for you that she like came up one last time to say goodbye. It was just such a
we're
special
getting
thing.
serious
Oh boy.
here.
This is so deep. It's so sad.
So I have just one cemetery, but several stories related to it. So it's also in Connecticut, and I swear we really do things outside of Connecticut, but we started with Connecticut. So
When you're
You said
connected to
doo-doo.
me,
duty.
when you're connected to me, everything is always Connecticut. I'm like, guys, my next case, it's national. I swear, I'm doing it national. Okay,
Hartford Circus.
Harvard Circus Fire. Nailed it.
Okay, so anyway, this is in Fairfield County, Connecticut. That is a very affluent part of the state since it's closest to New York City. So this is Easton, Connecticut. This town has a median income as of 2016 of $132,000. Easton is a small town. It's only got about 7,600 people, and it's pretty spread out. So we were talking about the creepy wooded areas. That's what this is. I felt like I was back in school doing research because I was looking up stats about. Do you remember looking up stats about countries? Like, I don't know. I just had you had to report like number of people, what per capita things, all that. It's what it felt like.
I remember one time I took a history quiz and they asked what the largest export of Montana was, and I said it was cold cuts.
Why?
I don't know. I thought that's what it exported. My mom still brings that up sometimes. She'll be like, remember that time you wrote on a test that whatever state it was, Montana exports cold cuts? It's their best export.
Okay. Well.
So that's the kind of research I did.
Okay. So there are only 277 people per square mile, which you would never know what the average is. So for comparison, Southington, which is, as we know, a suburb of Hartford, is 1,200 people per square mile. And New York City is 29,000. So obviously a different type, but just to give some relatives. So 277 is, you've got a lot of room.
Yeah.
And the most interesting thing that, besides the cemetery, that I could find about Easton is actually Helen Keller lived in that town for the last few years of her life, which I did not know. And her home is only 4 miles away from the cemetery, which is not super surprising because it's not that big a town. But the house was specially designed and constructed for her by a quote unquote well-known regional architect, Cameron Clark. Not well known to me. I'd never heard that name.
Cameron Clark.
Yeah, he was born.
Love his work.
Well, you might know that his best known work is the redesign of the Fairfield Town Hall in 1939.
Oh.
So,
I had completely forgotten. Thank
That
you so much.
Cameron.
Yes. Oh, that Cameron
Yeah,
Clark.
well, yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was a woman or a man when you first said it, so that's how familiar with his work I am.
Yeah. We only lived to 1957, so it kind of explains why.
I thought you were going to say he only lived to 19. I was like, oh, he was very accomplished for an architect then.
So Cameron and I did not cross paths.
No.
In the Fairfield Town Hall.
No. So Helen Keller's house is still intact today and has been owned by several families since her death in 1968. And the local middle school is named for her. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I didn't know she had anything to do with Connecticut.
I did not either.
Thank you for that grim fact.
You're welcome. That's a real one. As I said, Easton is pretty rural, and Union Cemetery, which is the center of my story, is located on also a corner / like kind of triangle in a pretty desolate area across from a big wooded area. So we're sensing a theme.
Mm-hmm. No street lights, right?
No streetlights. No. The cemetery itself is pretty small. It covers just under 2 acres, which is not. We've done a lot of comparisons of acreage on this podcast, but I think everyone knows 2 acres is pretty small.
It's so unfortunate because I'm distance challenged. I'm geographically challenged. I have a hard time with math. I mean, things are hard.
You can see very easily. You could walk very easily. You can see very easily from
2
one end to
acres,
the other.
because I figured like my backyard's like half an acre.
Exactly.
So I'll times that by 4. Hashtag math.
So aside from the roads on the 2 sides, it borders a church and some wetlands. There are gravestones as old as the 1700s. They think it might even be older into the 1600s, just that the headstones were wooden markers, so they've since deteriorated.
Makes sense.
Due to the high traffic volume at the cemetery, especially at night, the Easton Police Department has deemed the cemetery off limits to the public after dusk, so similar to what you were talking about. When I began researching for this episode, I thought I was going to be focused entirely on paranormal stuff, but we're actually going to start with a murder tied to the cemetery. So Monday, August 30th, 1920, taking it back, police arrived at that swamp / wetlands that I talked about next to the Union Cemetery. Now, at this time, there were few telephones and, as we said, no streetlights. And it's pretty spread out. So they actually had to go all the way to a general store to call in for floodlights because they couldn't see anything. They had to go all the way to Bridgeport's fire and police headquarters to bring in more officers, ladders, and ropes because it was so marshy and hard to walk. And by 11 p.m., a chain of men with their arms linked to brace themselves against the sinking mud found and retrieved a large green trunk. Crammed inside was the body of George E. Knott, the missing husband, in a lover's triangle that turned deadly. Wrapped in a bloody comforter and curtains, several large stones had been placed inside the makeshift coffin to weigh it down. So let me introduce you to George.
Oh, wow.
He was a self-described professional gambler who worked, quote unquote, at the Carlton Social Club in Bridgeport. He lived with his wife and their 2 children, George Jr., of course, and Ruth. Married since 1915, it was an unhappy relationship with his wife, Ethel. She described him as a liar, a cheat, and an opium user. Okay. And he had a domineering appearance and a reputation as a tough guy. So...
Not so tough now, George.
No. Ethel, on the other hand, was an attractive and personable young woman. She had hoped to salvage her marriage after years of abuse, but seemed to have given up on George by 1919 when she began sneaking around with Elwood B. Wade. That's his name.
We got to bring
B. Wade.
Elwood back.
Yeah, right? Elwood and Jasper.
It's a great name.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like Elwood a little bit better than Jasper.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I'd go the other way.
That would be the
more
second
unique.
Legally Blonde reference, though.
Yes,
Elwoods.
exactly. That's what I was thinking about.
Didn't even think about that. Anyway, this is Elwood.
Oh my God, you guys.
So Elwood B. Wade is his name. So Ethel's new lover was a 23-year-old milkman who, so this is like bring on the milkman's child jokes, who happened to have a wife and 2 young children of his own. Elwood and Ethel were commonly seen together and really careless about their trysts. They didn't care who saw them. Gossip in their Bridgeport neighborhood led to George confronting his rival and threatening his life. Elwood, who was a short and slight man, was greatly intimidated, and he ran to the police to report George's threatening statements. He was so panicked that he applied for a firearm permit, but he was denied because they recommended he just stay away from married women.
It's like sage advice.
They're like, we got it. We know exactly what you need to do. Leave women who are already unavailable alone.
Exactly.
Thank you. Bye.
Exactly. Unfortunately, on the morning of Sunday, August 29th, 1920, so the day before I first told you about, in partnership with a fellow dairyman named John E. Johnston, which can we just appreciate?
John Johnson.
Yep. Elwood and John snuck quietly into the Knott house, armed with a gun and a lead pipe. This is like Clue.
Yeah.
Who had the candlestick?
Ethel, probably, because so Ethel unlocked the door for them, let them in, and the 2 milkmen then tried to sneak into George's bedroom to catch him unaware, but George awoke and went after Elwood. John offered little help and just fled in fear, leaving Elwood alone to face the angry husband in a brawl that carried both men tumbling down the staircase. Elwood managed to shoot George 3 times and hit him repeatedly with the lead pipe. Ethel handed her lover a 14-inch kitchen knife, saying, "Finish him off." Stabbed him 19 times, actually. George was still moaning, and then finally a deadly blow to his head cracked his skull and ended his life.
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just thinking about Mortal Kombat when it's like, finish him. Finish him off. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I was like, that's really funny. That was a very violent episode.
I told Marina when I was researching this that I wasn't originally going to include this whole case, but I read through this article and had to share this story because it is a crazy story. John, who had fled, returned to help hide the body in that trunk that we talked about, and they drove their milk truck to the swamp near the Union Cemetery. So it's about 13 miles north from Bridgeport.
John's like, what I miss? What? And it's like,
oh, a body. Okay.
It's like, bro.
Yeah.
You missed the brawl of the century.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep.
Guys, do the milk trucks bring all the police to the swamp?
And they're like, it's better than yours.
Damn right. So they put their murder weapons in the trunk and added some stones for good measure to weigh it down, and then dropped it in the water.
So how did the police find the trunk?
Well, so actually this is the creepy part, so I'm kind of laughing through this whole thing, but they thought there's no reason for this. It floated to the top.
Oh, I mean, I get that there's stones in it, but it makes sense that it would float to the top because as he decays, he's going to fill with gases. Yeah. It's going to be trapped in the trunk. So it becomes basically like a lead balloon.
Science. Neighbors,
hashtag science.
Neighbors were immediately suspicious of the why did I write loud music? Nope. Got the giggles.
No more wine.
The gigs. I appreciate when Laura and I laugh just breathy. So it's just awkward
You can't
silence.
even include it in the podcast.
It's awkward silence, and Colby will just be like, "Well then," like completely stone cold.
Okay, coming back. Neighbors were
the loud music. Were they distracted by the loud music?
I literally wrote that. Okay. Neighbors were immediately suspicious of the loud noises coming from the house that early Sunday morning, and grew more so when George was nowhere to be seen the rest of that day. So concerned phone calls alerted the police, who, after a quick search of the house, found a bullet hole lodged in the wall and blood on the bed. And less than a day later, and after intense interrogation, Elwood, John, and Ethel all confessed. So
they couldn't do it.
They immediately cracked under pressure.
Ethel's like, that's a decorative bullet hole.
Yep. So John, who was initially charged with murder, he cooperated with the prosecution and pled guilty to manslaughter. So he just got a year in prison. That's it. I mean, to be fair, he ran. Elwood and Ethel were indicted for first-degree murder, for which the penalty at the time, the only penalty was death by hanging. So they were trying to avoid that. The trial itself was very dramatic. Elwood was loving the attention and would just like smoke a cigar and then even kiss Ethel in the middle of the courthouse. Meanwhile, his wife is hanging out there. Like, they're all, well, George is not hanging out there.
I'm still picturing Reese Witherspoon smoking a cigar.
Yeah, that works. And then Elwood's wife and Ethel were often seen sobbing and frequently fainting, because that's what she did then. And both women had to be carried either in or out of the court and taken to the hospital at various times. So it was very dramatic.
That sounds very dramatic. Mm-hmm. Sounds like my toddler when I won't give her a snack before dinner.
Yes.
Oh, my stars.
Eventually, and absolutely to no surprise, Elwood was found guilty and sentenced to death on May 20th. Ethel, however, was charged with just second-degree murder and life in prison, but she was released only 16 years later and lived with her son until her death in 1978. So I tell you all that because I originally just looked up that there was this body found in the wetlands near the cemetery, but that was too crazy a little aside to not tell you.
It's like a mini Grimm inside of our Grimm.
Exactly.
We still got a murder in.
Exactly.
And it was grave.
It was grave.
Indeed.
It was his grave.
And it was near graves.
Speaking of graves. So there are two kind of entities to talk about in relation to Union Cemetery. So the first one is pretty short, but then the second one I have a lot more information about. So the first one, visitors, if you were like Marina and going to the cemetery, which people do, and as an aside, if you're looking this up, they will fine and possibly arrest you if you are there after dark. So don't do that. Be respectful, but go check it out during the day. So visitors, if they happen to be there at night, will report an eerie sensation that they're being watched. They will often even feel a hot breath on their neck, and when they turn around, they can see a set of red eyes watching them from the distance.
I don't like it.
No, thank you.
So they call this, of course, red eyes.
Very original.
Very excellent name.
Astute.
Sort of like Green Lady. They see a
Yes, the
green
colors.
lady. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about the white lady in a minute here.
I know her.
Yep. I know him.
Santa. I know him.
So we're not making this really creepy by
No.
making it really funny.
No.
Okay.
So the red eyes.
Red Eyes is believed to be the ghost of Earl Kellogg. He was a resident of Easton in the 1930s. Held a reputation for not being a great guy. He had a violent temper, especially when he was drunk. He had lots of enemies and apparently pissed one off so bad that he was murdered. His body was found floating in a nearby ravine. He had been killed and his body was set on fire. Pretty aggressive murder.
So are his eyes red because he's so mad?
That's what I gathered.
Or because he's on fire?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So I don't know. There's not much about this. Basically, all the stories are the same. They see the red eyes. They feel someone following them. One of the comments, however, on the articles I read said they saw red eyes, and then they said it was a pair of reflectors on a wooden stake, and that they talked to the police that patrol there, and they said, yeah, people just move around the wooden stake. So, yeah.
Those would look super creepy
Right?
if you
Yeah.
caught the flashlight and you weren't paying attention.
Exactly.
And you
Now, reports of people reporting red eyes will say that they move and they chase you, but like as we said, when you're already kind of creeped out, that's what you see. So I don't know. Now the other story or entity that I'm going to tell you about, I find really interesting because of the testimonials and the theories. So so I mentioned earlier, I kind of got a little freaked out when I was looking this up. It's not that freaky, but being that I assumed there would be absolutely nothing just sitting in my living room on my computer, when I was looking up Street View on Google Street View to look at this, I swear there is a white lady in the picture that I'm looking at. So I'll post it. I literally took a screenshot on my computer because I was like, I'm sure it's just a gravestone in the distance, but it really, really looks like it. And I was like, well, what are the odds of
I want
that?
to see it.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So you saw it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a hooded person standing in like way in the background.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, it looks so much like that maybe someone got silly on Google Maps and knows these stories and put it there. That's how realistic I thought it was. So you'll see it. You'll see the screenshot on Instagram. But
What I think it is actually is a very, very far away statue of the Virgin Mary with that cloak over her head. The Mother Mary with the cloak.
I don't know that there is one in that cemetery.
Well, then spook.
Exactly.
Super spook.
So let me tell you a little bit about what people say about this white lady who is allegedly, there you go, in the cemetery. So one of the most popular tales about the white lady is that late one evening, a man was driving down Stepney Road, which is one of the roads that borders the cemetery, in his pickup truck just past the cemetery. Out of nowhere, a woman appeared in the middle of the road wearing a white dress. The man couldn't slow down in time and struck the woman. When the man pulled over to investigate, the woman was nowhere to be seen. Another story by Rod Vesky of Easton said he was driving past the cemetery one night at about 1 a.m. when he saw her. I saw a woman standing further up the road, so I tapped the brakes. As I tapped the brakes, I felt something touch me. I looked over and there was a gentleman sitting in my seat. She raised her hand up, and what I remember is that most of her hand got very large. As soon as that happened, I looked over and the image I had seen next to me disappeared. He said that that's when things got really frightening. As I got over the hill, the road seemed to turn red until I got to the bottom where there's another church, and the road and everything disappeared.
I'd be like, I need to go to the hospital because I just had an ischemic event.
Yes. And it seems to be her thing, kind of surprising people in the road. So in the 90s, this is another famous story. A firefighter responding to a call in the nearby town of Monroe said a woman in a long white gown jumped in front of him and he hit her. According to the Monroe Sun, the newspaper, the woman rolled over the top of his car and landed in the road behind him. When the firefighter leaped from the vehicle to render first aid, his hood was dented and there was no one there.
That's super creepy.
So there's a ton of stories like that. I was reading a bunch of articles where people can comment on the article, and people told they're similar to Marina went out ghost hunting and told very similar stories, always in the road.
So she's very playful then.
Yes.
She doesn't actually seem malicious based on what she's doing.
No.
She's just like, I'm bored, I can't cross over, so I'm going to mess with some men.
And there is some connection with this road, so I'll talk about that in a second. So there might be some significance to her being on that road.
Wait, but here's a question. Do you think maybe the cops were like, where did you hide the body? If they were like, I hit someone and my car is dented and there's nothing there, they'd be like, do we need to investigate further?
Yeah, it is an interesting question. I wonder if people are like, yeah, it just happened near that cemetery. I'll let it go.
They're like, oh, must have been the
they're
white
like, it's
lady.
her.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
She does that sometimes.
Carry on.
Yeah. So like I said, a ton of stories like that. And the people that have seen her say she's dressed in a bright white nightgown with long black hair and her head and face concealed with a white bonnet. So that's why that picture on Google Maps kind of looks like that.
It does look like a bonnet.
No, okay, I can't do the white with the long black hair. I'm like the most afraid of Samara from The Ring. She haunts my dreams.
Yeah, fair enough. So don't go to Route 59 or Stepney Road, which is the road that she goes on.
Unrelated question, if, where is that? Because I might go.
I actually want to drive by in the daytime, to be clear.
I want to go at night.
I know you do.
Grim field trip.
Yeah, we have a few places to go.
Yeah.
So it's maybe like 45 minutes from here.
Okay.
Something like
Not
that.
too bad.
No. And it is a really nice area of the state. So we could check that out. So no one knows exactly who she is. You can't point exactly to the person that people think she is, but there are some theories. The first is Ellen Smathers, a woman who was murdered in the cemetery in the 1800s. And this is also an interesting story. Smathers had been stalked by a man named Richard Dean Jason, who was obsessed with her.
The triple name.
The gentleman.
And Jason.
Was it the gentleman in that guy's car?
Oh, ooh, I didn't think about that. I wonder. So he ended up murdering Ellen's husband and dumping his body in, there was a sinkhole behind the church that's right next to the cemetery. And Jason went so far as to weigh down the body with iron chunks. And he committed the murder.
I'm sorry, iron chunks?
Yeah.
Where do you get those?
The iron store?
The iron yard.
And how do you tie someone down with chunks?
I think he actually put them in his pockets. That part I know.
That was pretty smart.
It's not smart because the pants are going to disintegrate and he's just going to float right up.
It was
but
not
that's not his
then.
problem by then.
That's true, I guess.
So Richard Dean Jason committed the murder hoping Ellen would see his devotion and return his love. And when she didn't, he murdered her and dumped her body next to the husband. And he eventually confessed to the murder, blaming his actions on passion for Ellen.
What a dick.
Yeah.
Get it? Because his name's Richard.
Oh, wait.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
So this theory says that Ellen, as the White Lady, now wanders the cemetery looking for her husband, which is sad. The next one is Harriet B. Seeley. Though there are quite a few Harriets at the Union Cemetery, none actually match this name precisely. So assuming there's been some kind of a misreading or a conflation of different women, there are two possible candidates. Harriet Seeley Bryan, who died in 1836, or Harriet R. Seeley, who died in 1853. And unfortunately, both match the criteria. So Harriet Seeley Bryan, daughter of Patience and Elijah. And Patience is another one I like. Another good name.
Bring it back.
Yep. She was born on October 19th, 1815, and she married Titus A. Bryan on February 10th, 1836. And 9 days later, she died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Records indicate that she died at her home in Washington, which is, I think, the town over. Not clear why, but there was a lot of illness at this time, and she was only 21. So pretty sad. And then Harriet R. Seeley married to Ezra Sherwood Seeley in 1850. She gave birth to a son on May 20th, 1853, and the infant did not live long, and Harriet died on May 28th, so 8 days later.
Oh my God. Though, what was the life expectancy of people back in 1830? Like, I feel like 36 was he had a good run.
Yeah, she was only 24, so she had at least a few more years.
She had so many years ahead of her.
what I thought was interesting looking at this is the term white lady or lady in white often refers to tales where they all relate to the story of a woman who died a tragic death and left behind a sorrow tied to the particular location. So I'm quoting this from the Easton Courier, which is the newspaper. She represents all those lost too young, and she manifests all our beliefs and anxieties about death and eternity. The core of her legend is a sorrowful tale, but she is not a terrifying spirit. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
Wow. I think all spirits are terrifying.
She's playful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm driving and somebody jumps out in front of my car, like, haha, not funny, that's terrifying.
Agreed. Ed and Lorraine Warren wrote a book about the white lady in 1992 called The Graveyard: True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery. So the Warrens live right down the road from Stepney Cemetery, which is off of Stepney Road, as you might think, which is the road that borders Union Cemetery. So why am I telling you all this? Well, the white lady is said to haunt Stepney Cemetery in Monroe, which is the town over, and the cemeteries are only 4 miles apart. And Ed and Lorraine Warren are buried in that cemetery. The road that she tends to haunt near the Union Cemetery is the road you'd take to get to Stepney. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's the story that I found about Union Cemetery. It is also on the list of like most haunted cemeteries, definitely in Connecticut, but also like across the United States. So definitely want to drive by in the daytime. And I think in general, we'd love to hear what you guys all think about a paranormal episode.
Yeah. Okay, I would also, so I'm interested what people think about a spook episode, because this is obviously very different than what we've done before. Also, please DM us your own spooky ghost stories, because I love to read people's stories.
Me too.
I don't care if there are people out there that are like, they're all completely made up. Like I said, looking back on it, like, are the leaves rustling a squirrel? Or was that like a piece of fuzz in my camera instead of an orb? Like, I don't care. I want to hear the story as you remembered it and experienced it. And I will believe you.
And I do want to do another episode because I would like to hear some of Colby's stories. So I feel like we're due for another one. And I almost got too deep into the research and thought about doing, because we were talking about asylums and abandoned buildings. That's another fascination of mine. So I almost went deep on that. But I think that'll be another episode.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do more spooky episodes too, because I want to do Dudleytown, which is like a very, very haunted area of Connecticut that is...
Oh, you want to do something in Connecticut? That's weird.
I really want to widen the scope of my presentations and focus on Cornwall, Connecticut.
Oh, that's the one I asked you about the other day.
Yes,
I want to hear about that one.
Okay.
Yes, and I mean, we could do Little People's Village, which is also very far away in Connecticut.
It's as far away as Marina can live from.
Also know about the Undercliff Sanatorium. That is also very far away in Meriden, Connecticut. So, I mean, we could really cover like a breadth of topics across a wide area of Connecticut. No, but also seriously, we're somebody asked me today if we're willing to do serial killers, and I was like,
I did one.
Yes, we have. Yes, and we are very open to serial killers. So again, guys, don't forget I'm going to plug our social media if I may. We would love to hear your ghost stories. We would love to hear case suggestions, whatever you guys want to hear. We're always looking for new cases. We have a list, but again, like, we love the suggestions, cases we haven't heard about. You can send us that information at grimcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Grim Crime Podcast for information on future episodes, and we'll post case photos, including the White Lady. I'll post that super creepy picture of Shade Camp as well as Green Lady Cemetery.
And I'll post the questionable Google Maps screenshot.
Yes, that
one.
You
can judge that one for yourself.
That's what I was talking about, the picture of the White Lady.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll post all of them.
We'll post that.
We'll post all of them. And if you're enjoying listening to us, guys, please rate and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. On Apple Podcasts, if you want to leave us a little love letter, we would love that. But we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. Do we have anything else?
I loved hearing ghost stories. Thank you guys for the research and for entertaining me and getting me all excited to go ghost hunting or ghost encountering, but by myself apparently.
No, I'll go with you and then never sleep ever again.
Okay.
But yeah, guys, let us know what you thought, because we have a vacation, so we just wanted to throw in a little something different, see what you like. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, also let us know, but really nicely and secretly, and email us, and don't give us 1 star on Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much. We love you. Bye.
Bye.
Listen, learn, and stay alive. Bye.